Now let's turn to the step in which the researcher engages in collecting the needed data by using the various methods and instruments. The researcher goes into the field, collects the data, trains data collectors, and supervises their overall data collection process. Data collection may be of two types: primary and secondary data. Primary data are first-hand and original information. This is information that the researcher has collected themselves. They're collected by the sociologists during their own research using research tools such as the experiment, survey, questionnaire, interviews, and observation. Secondary data, on the other hand, are those which are already collected by someone else, found in various sources, such as documents, journals, and archives. This can include official statistical documents from government reports, for example, or mass media sources such as electronic media, print media, also other various secondary sources. In sociology, the methods of data collection include field study, which is ethnography using participant observation, also surveys, experiments, interviews, focus groups, life histories, and others. The first method of data collection I want to focus on is ethnography. If a researcher wants to study a group, organization, or community, they would hang out with them and take direct part in their activities. This is called an ethnography. As a qualitative method, ethnography generates richer and more in-depth information than any other method. It can provide a broader understanding of social processes. Typical ethnographic research employs three kinds of data collection: interviews, observation, and documents. When it's successful, ethnography provides information on the behavior of people in groups, organizations, and communities, and how those people understand their own behavior. Ethnography usually employs participant observation, a qualitative method, which involves collecting data on social phenomena by carefully observing the social processes, events, activities, behaviors, actions, places, objects, and which all must be observed and recorded. Participant observation is the active involvement in community life while studying it. The researcher participates in a research setting while observes what is happening in that setting. But fieldwork, just like any other methodology, also has its own limitations. Only small groups or communities can be studied, and much depends on the skills of the individual researcher in gaining the confidence of the individuals involved. This also can be at times this can also put the researcher at times in danger or risk. An example of this is the chapter you read for this unit by Bruce Jacobs, where he discusses some of the issues and obstacles he encounters studying street corner drug dealing. The second dominant quantitative technique in sociology today is surveys. This involves sampling, impersonal data collections, and sophisticated statistical analysis. Of all the social science research techniques, survey research probably seems to be the most visible and pervasive form of research. In survey research, the people who provide information are called respondents, and they're often selected on random sample basis, meaning that all the members of the population have an equal chance of being included in the study population. Two sorts of questionnaires are used in surveys. Some contain a standardized or fixed choice set of questions, to which only a fixed range of responses is possible. For instance, yes, no, don't know, very likely, likely, unlikely, and very unlikely. Such surveys have the advantage that responses are very easy to compare and count up because only a small number of categories are involved. On the other hand, because they do not allow for subtleties of opinion or verbal expression, the information they yield is likely to be restricted in scope, if not misleading. Other questionnaires are open-ended. Respondents have more opportunity to express their views in their own words. They're not limited to making fixed choice responses. Open-ended questionnaires typically provide more detailed information than standardized ones. The researcher can follow up answers to probe more deeply into what the respondent thinks. On the other hand, the lack of standardization means that responses may be more difficult to compare statistically. Questionnaires should take into consideration the characteristic of the respondents. Will they see the point the researcher has in mind when asking a particular question? A pilot study is a trial run in which the questionnaire is completed by just a few people. Any difficulties can and should be ironed out before the main survey is done. The third quantitative method that is used in sociology is experiment. An experiment can be defined as an attempt to test a hypothesis under a highly controlled condition established by the investigator. Experiments are often used in the natural sciences as they offer major advantages over other research procedures. Sociologists also conduct experimental studies following the procedures and principles of experimentation. This is usually done to explore